Right. Thanks so much. I'm just gonna dive in. I have so many fun questions for you. I really
All right.
enjoyed all three of these books.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah. So Jeffrey Deaver, thank you for joining us on this podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Launch day for the final twist. Always exciting. I've written roughly 44 novels, and launch day is exciting now as it was for the very first one.
That's so good to hear. Well, your character, Coulter Shaw, is now out there seeking evidence to bring down a corporate espionage firm that could be responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths. It's a very exciting story. Final twist. But I wanted to start with Coulter Shaw. Now, it's only been two, maybe a little more than 2 years ago that you first introduced Coulter Shaw to readers. Your
Correct.
readers, your readers can start to slowly acquaint themselves with this character page by page, whether it's Lincoln Rhyme or Catherine Dance, over the course of several books. I think their experience of familiarizing themselves with a new protagonist of yours is designedly at their own pace. What's it like for you, the writer, to bring up a new character? Or would you scrupulously map out and decide upon all of Coulter Shaw's idiosyncrasies and backstory before you even start? Or does Coulter surprise you as you go along?
Uh, Good question. And some authors would say the character develops him or herself as they move along, but that's not in my case. I am the difference between the pantser and the plotter. Pants, for your listeners who don't know, seat of the pants. They sit down with a blank computer and write the story. And then the plotters, like myself, I'm an outliner. I'm an obsessive outliner. I adhere to what Joyce Carol Oates said, that you can't write your first sentence until you know what your last sentence is. And I think that is so true. I spent 8 months doing an outline. The outline ends up being about 130, 140, 150 pages. And within that is the bio of each character. And so I knew right up front who Coulter Shaw was. Well, not right up front, but during that 8 month process. And that was a journey, that 8 month process. That was a journey, but that was not in the actual creation of the prose itself. It was, I think, okay, I'll put him on a motorcycle. Now, I used to ride a dirt bike a long time ago. That's a fun thing to do. He's very physical. I'm going to make him a rock climber. And then I'm going to give him this odd profession of being a reward seeker. And that is not a profession that actually exists, but I thought it made sense because, most of the PIs are not like Sam Spade. They just dig out public information on people. That's not what the dramatic private eyes do. Well, Coulter Shaw has kind of a made up career, but he travels around the country looking for rewards that have been offered for missing children or by police for a suspect they can't find. And that to me seemed like the idea of an itinerant hero was very powerful to me. And I thought it would appeal to readers as well.
Yeah. We think of Coulter Shaw as this survivalist that sort of paints this picture of maybe being a lone wolf out there. But this book, especially in the final twist, we start learning much, much more about his family and the people that he cares about, even though he has complicated relationships with his family. Can you talk about bringing that element into this story? I think that the pages really crackle when we learn more about his family, not beyond just his father, of course.
Well, I appreciate that because that was very intended on my part. I heard a radio show a few years ago in which the interviewee, and I missed who it was, oddly, I missed the introduction, probably a neurolinguist or someone like that, a scientist, had said that the part of our brain that creates emotional feelings with respect to the actual living, breathing people we know, our romantic partners, our children, our parents, and the bad people in our life, our exes, our bad bosses, the guy who cuts you off on the freeway. Well, that's the same part of the brain that creates an emotional connection with fictional characters. And to the extent that you create real living and breathing characters in your books, in other words, flesh them out, give them depth, make them rich, the experience of the book is going to be that much greater. So with Coulter, I actually had heard that interview when I was working on the Never game, the first in the series. And I decided with Coulter Shaw, I would give him this very rich backstory including his brother, his sister, his mother, and his father no longer with us, although we see his father in flashbacks. Um, and because I wanted not only to tell a fast moving plot, which I do in all my books, they're very plot driven, but so that's a hook that grabs the reader right away. But there's also this connection the readers have to Coulter as a character, and ideally his other family members and the people he meets and interacts with. So, I was on an interview once it was in England, and the presenter said, "Mr. Deaver." I should back up. Usually interviews are kind of, we're talking to nice people like you. The interviews are nice, and it's there to, I'm there to sell the book. They're there to help the listeners learn a little bit about me. But he pointed his finger at me. It was live in the studio, and he said, "What do you say? What do you say to the charge that you're manipulative?" And I said, "Thank you." I don't usually think quickly, but I said thank you because that's exactly what I am. And I want to manipulate readers the way people get on a roller coaster and are manipulated. And so I manipulate them with the plot. They want to know what's going to happen next. I end the chapters on a high note, big question mark. And then at the same time, I create characters that are rich and that people want to get to know. Actually, people have said, is Coulter Shaw based on a real person? And if so, is he single?
That something that has been bubbling over the three books here, and especially comes to a head here, is his connection, his relationship, his loyalty to his father. His father's teachings are always in his head. He's the that his father's almost a tertiary character, even though he's not physically present. Uh, and I hope I'm not asking the magician to reveal the trick here, but when you think of Coulter, how he regards his father, what is that relationship? Because Coulter's not exactly the touchy feely emotional guy, but there's loyalty there, especially in this one when he's trying to solve this case almost for his father.
Sure. And what I try to do in creating, when I say rich characters,
Yeah.
that means avoiding the cliches of the, I think of the Princess Bride. My name, I can't get his name, I can't remember his name, but my name is whatever it might be. You killed my father, prepare to die. That's a trope, of course, for, the family issues. Well, families have issues. Coulter had issues with his father. There was almost physical violence when some of his father's mental health conditions intruded on this wonderful, complex man's life. And so to make Coulter come alive, I felt I needed to make his father come alive. So we see them together in some flashbacks.
Mhm.
And I think the the conflict that Coulter has felt is revealed in his uh, desire to pursue this mysterious courier bag. That's the MacGuffin in the plot that has a very nefarious document inside. I can't say too much about, but it's kind of like it's kind of like the Da Vinci Code in a way. Imagine Da Vinci Code with Sam Spade, the detective in San Francisco, and but Coulter is driven to solve that mystery, even though um, is he going to have his father's murderer arrested? Was his father even murdered? He doesn't know, but he cannot rest until he answers the question.
Hmm. Hmm. I also want to say, having read the first two books and then going into this one, I really feel like you up the ante in terms of how much Coulter has to deal with. In the first book, he is immersing himself in Silicon Valley in the video game industry. In the second book, there's a cult. In this third book, I could say that there's a nefarious corporation, but there is a lot more going on, more clients to take on. What was that like for you, the writer here? Because I almost saw you as when you're arranging all this subterfuge, I almost pictured it like composing a symphony because there's a lot to keep in your head there. Is that
Sure.
does that get intense? Does that get fun? Does that get
Totally, totally intense. And because and I'll tell your listeners, there's the core plot of Coulter trying to stop this corporation from doing bad things, and eventually, actually, what they're doing is to decrease property values. They're throwing OxyContin and fentanyl into the streets for free, then users descend on that area, the property values fall, the corporation buys the property and ousts the people. And so people are getting killed. Coulter's father discovered that. That's one of the reasons he may have been killed. And so Coulter simply has to stop that. Well, then he's on a reward case too. This woman, his daughter, has gone missing, and uh, everything comes together at the end. There's not a single aspect of the plot that isn't woven together, so that each at the end facilitates the revelation of the twist, then the twist beyond that, and then the twist beyond that. So I get very tense. I get incredibly tense with this. It's because it's pulling everything together. And it's it's like watching a symphony. It's all the different instruments. They all have to come together at just the right point.
There's a lot of gray areas here. I don't know if hero is the right word for Coulter Shaw per se, and I don't know if villains are the right word for the handful of characters that he encounters. Irene Braxton comes to mind. I talked about crackling. It really crackles on the page when we get to these three particular characters that are with Blackbridge, who just seem like fun, scary villains to me. And I wondered what it's like for you as the author. You write your protagonist sort of hero. Is it fun to write villains too?
Oh, I love villains. Villains are so much fun. And, the villain has to be as intelligent as the hero, and certainly has to have more resources than the hero, because when the hero prevails, if the hero prevails, we have to feel the hero has met a true challenge. And because if you have a cardboard caricature, like my hairstyle, bald with a ponytail and a black jacket, I twirl my mustache if I could. That's not a villain. That's not somebody who represents a real threat. But Coulter is up against both political and corporate interests here that will stop at nothing, including torture, because there is so much money involved, and of course this ultimate character involved with the head of Banyan Tree Holdings. Echoing some corporate and political interests in the real world. What a delightful, smarmy bad guy he is. So I had great fun creating those bad guys, and including the best villain name I could think of, Ebbet Droon.
Oh, yes. I meant to bring up Rune. What a great name. You have had your characters adapted for the screen, for film, for TV before. What might be distinct about the way you might feel when it's Coulter Shaw's turn for TV adaptation?
Well, I can give you the particulars about that. It's been purchased by Disney's 20th television division. That's like the 20th Century Fox TV division, now 20th television. And it will be directed by Ken Olin from 30 something. This Is Us, and the star of This Is Us, Justin Hartley, will be playing Coulter Shaw. Now that was put on hold because of COVID, but now they're getting back into the casting and production and so forth. And I thought it was a perfect choice. But I have to say, I'm delighted. I know Ken personally; he's done great work, and I've met Justin. He's a great actor, a great producer as well. And but let them do their own thing. I'll hand off to them, and then I will get on with what I do, which is writing another book. And the new Lincoln Rhyme will be out in November, as I say. Then I'll be alternating the two of them. And to me, I love television. I mean, Breaking Bad was maybe the best thing I've ever seen on TV. I love The Queen's Gambit, of course, many wonderful shows. But that's their business. I don't really know how to put together a movie. That's a project by committee, and I'm a guy who doesn't play well with others. And so it's good to let them go off. Gets my name around. It's kind of advertising that I get paid for. But I'm so skeptical when I hear an author say, "Oh, they took my book and turned it into this terrible movie. They stole my baby." And then I say, "Oh, you sent the check back in protest, did you?" And they, of course, say, "No, I didn't." So.
Well, it's a very rich character to mine, a rich story. It's the energy of detective without being a detective, and the family, and it's very complex character, and it was very enjoyable to read. So, folks, wait for that adaptation. It's much later. Just pick up the book. We thank you, Jeffrey Deaver, so much for joining us to talk about the final twist.
Well, thank you so much. And maybe we can chat again in November when the new Lincoln comes out.
You got it, sir.
Okay, take care.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
You bet. Take
Take care.
care.